We're back at Capital Casino playing in the 1-3 game, buying for $500. Just looks like a pretty good lineup. There's one new player in there who is very aggressive, and he gave me a little bit of a headache. Anyway, sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. After a successful meetup game at Bankers Casino down in Salinas, California, back at Capital Casino, buying for the 1-3 game for $500, and off we go. First interesting hand of the day, we have one player at limps. I'm in the cutoff with Jack 10 suited. Raise to 15, I get called from the button, the small blind, and the limper. So we're going to go 4 ways to this flop with $60 in the pot. Flop comes out pretty good. It comes King, Queen, 4 with 1 spade. So we flop an open-ender, and we got a backdoor flush draw. First 2 players check to us. This is a green light to bet, so I bet out 20. Player on the button thinks for a little bit before folding. And now the small blind, who's been playing extremely aggressive, a new face in town. I later found out his name is Tom, and he's a vlog watcher and supporter. He's been very aggressive, and he decides to raise to 75. What kind of hands he'll do this with? I don't know. From what I've seen, he's been very aggressive with all his 1-pair hands, but he probably thinks I have something, maybe like a king, and so I'm thinking maybe he has king queen here, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to call, and let's hit a straight. So a heads up, we have 210 in the pot. We get a turn card of a 8 of spades. So we pick up a spade draw. We still got our open ender, but Tom, he's not going to make it easy on us. He's going to bet pot. So he bets out $200, which is not very good for us because we would have to call $200 to win this. The odds are just a little bit short of giving us the right amount for this current round. But as aggressive as he's been, I think that if I hit my straight or flush, that I'm going to get the rest of my chips in the pot. So after he bets 200, I go ahead and put in the call. So it looks like we need one of our 15 outs to scoop this pot, and we get a 7 of hearts. Obviously, that doesn't help us. And when Tom decides that he's going to fire again, this time for $210, which basically puts us all in. There's nothing to do but surrender. I did posture for a little bit before I folded, trying to make it look like maybe I had a decision. He seemed very comfortable with his bet, so he might just had a king. He might have something like king, queen, maybe a set of 4s. I'll never know. I'll doubt he'll ever tell me either. I had 500 more to my stack. Tom was really steamrolling the table at this point. I looked down at ace 10 of clubs, opened up for middle position for 15, and of course he ends up 3-betting me to 60. I got a definite hand I can defend with. I thought about 4-betting him and really putting pressure back on him because he was playing very, very aggressive, and I assumed that he couldn't have it all the time. But I decided just to flat. I think it was a mistake. I think I should have went ahead and 4-bet. Flop is king 6-3 with 2 clubs. It ends up getting checked around, so I really regret not 4-betting. Turn card comes as a king of spades. I decided to go ahead and bet $60 at this point. My intentions are to barrel anything because I don't think he's too strong unless he's slow playing a king. He puts in a quick call, and we're going to go off to a river card with 244 in the pot. River is good. It's a jack of clubs, so we make our flush. I thought about downsizing my initial intentions and betting maybe like 150, but I decided just to keep the pressure on, make him think that maybe I'm trying to steal this thing and he might call me light. He did think about it for quite some time before ending up folding. He later told me that he had pocket 10s and came very close to making a hero call. As I was stacking the chips from that last pot, I looked down and find 2 aces from the +1 position. Put in a raise to 15. I get called from the player on my direct left and a player on the button. The player on the button has a tendency to want to take pots away when you check to him on weakness. So I have that in my mind when the flop comes out. Ace high with 2 diamonds. Now it's a little dangerous to check with a flush draw on board, but I do have the ace of diamonds, so I knew that was in my favor. I check it over, it gets checked around. Turn card comes as a jack of clubs. I decide to check again, thinking the player on the button will go ahead and take a shot at it, and he doesn't disappoint. He bets out for $20. Now I have to kind of put in a raise. I don't think he'll call too much, so I make it 50. I might have done better if I made a larger number. Anyway, it's folded back to him. He puts in the call, and we see basically a blank on the river. It does complete a couple interesting straight draws, but other than that, I don't think it's any problem. I bet out about $80, hoping that he would call, but he quickly lets it go, so I don't think he had too much. I think he was just stabbing. Well, I've been fighting my way back to even. I'm a little bit short right now. I looked at 2 jacks from under the gun. Make it 15. I get called from the player on my direct left, and then 2 other players also put in the call. It comes back around to the player who's in the big blind, who's been very conservative so far, and he decides to put in a raise. So he makes it 80. And when he does, I'm thinking that he has a very strong range. What to do? I got 3 players behind me. I really don't want a cold call, and I really don't want a 4-bet, and I don't think I can fold. So basically, I randomized it, looked at my watch, and decided it was just time to call. So I put in the call. Tell me what you think. Would you have 4-bet this thing? Would you fold to a tight player putting in a raise? Well, anyway, I called. The player directly behind me also calls. He has like, I don't know, $1,100 in his stack. The player to my right has about $900 in his stack. So we're playing some deep stack poker on this particular hand. The other players fold out, and we head to the flop. And the flop comes out King 10-4 with 2 spades. Interesting flop. The player to my right now leads really small. He bets less than a quarter of the pot for $60. I'm really not buying that he has a king at this point. If he did, I think he probably would bet bigger than that. Maybe he flopped a set and wants someone with a king to raise him. But for $60, I got a backdoor flush draw, and I might have the best hand with jacks. I decided to put in the call. Now the player on my left, he also spends some time thinking. And I think that he would probably put in a big raise right here if he had a king or better. Instead, he just puts in the call. So maybe he has a flush draw. Maybe he has some sort of straight draw. We're going to find out as we head to the turn with $436 in the pot. The turn is a 2 of spades. It brings in the front door flush draw. But other than that, it really doesn't do too much. So all those straight draws miss. And now my opponent to my direct right decides to check. So I don't think the opponent to my right is as strong as I originally thought he was. He could have pocket queens, maybe pocket queens with a queen of spades. That would be bad. He might have a king and be afraid of the flush. But I think probably the best play at this point is just to check it. My hand is too strong to really turn it into a bluff at this point. And it's really too weak to try to get value out of anything that might call me. So I check it over to the player behind me, and he thinks for a while and decides on a bet of $160. This is a very interesting bet because I really didn't think he had a king in this spot. I thought he might have played a flush this way, but the sizing seems a little bit odd, and the way he bet it seemed a little bit odd. Everything is just a little bit off on this. If I'm behind a king, I have a flush card for an out, but I really don't think he has a king, so that probably means I'm ahead. But it might mean he has a flush card for an out. So it's a 50-50 situation in my mind. Of course, the worst possible thing would be if he has a flush already, or he has a king with, say, a queen of spades or ace of spades, because that would basically leave me just about dead. What to do? I thought about jamming. I think maybe if I come over the top, it would be really hard for him to call with, say, a hand like King Jack or King Queen. Maybe even Ace King might find a fold for all our chips. But the problem is I took too long thinking about it. And I think it's just a little bit of a sign of weakness. So I think my hand's too strong to fold and too weak to raise. But I think I'm ahead. I just don't want to risk all my chips on it. So I put in the call, hoping for a blank, and we get the ace of diamonds, the worst card in the deck. Now all those ace high flush draws get there, all those straight draws get there, either with a pair of aces or with the actual straight. I check it, he checks it back. I tell him I have jacks, and he rolls over ace queen of hearts. I think I really screwed this one up. And after this hand, it was a downhill slide from there. Well, I burned through a lot of chips, so I added another $500 to my stack, in for $1,500 at this point. So for the next hour and a half, it was nothing but a bloodbath. Every time I raised or 3-bet, I missed the flop. The action got to me, and it was like I couldn't go any further. There was no hand I got past the flop on for the next hour and a half. And I had a lot of like medium playable hands, like Queen Jack suited, Ace 10 suited, some 7-8 suited. Just couldn't do anything with it. So I burned through a lot of chips. I probably burned through $300 or $400 just in playable stuff without getting anywhere. I did try to bluff one person off a top pair. Basically, it didn't go well. And then we decided to play a bomb pot. So they're only playing $10 bomb pots. So of course, I participated, and this time I'm pretty hot and stuck, looking for any way to get even. This particular hand, I took a peek at the ace of hearts. The flop comes out king 9-4 with 2 hearts. So I'm thinking maybe I'll pick up a flush draw and get a lot of money in and miss it again. The action ends up going, someone bets for 45, a player calls the 45, and I look down at another ace. So I got pocket aces in a bomb pot with 2 people already showing interest and still a couple players behind me to act. I decided I'm not going to get even by folding, so might as well just go for it. So I put in a raise, make it $200. The person who is a very conservative player on my direct left shoves all in for less. I think he has a very good hand at this point. Maybe he has 2 pair, maybe even the set. At least he has like a big flush draw. All the other players fold out. 2 of them later said they both had pocket jacks on this hand. And naturally, I have them covered, so we're going to end up seeing a run out, which comes a 4 of diamonds and a 7 of clubs. He showed that he had king 10 of hearts for top pair and a flush draw, and my pocket aces stand up for this $460 pot. The first part I drug in about 2 hours. There's a limp, and the player raises to 18. I'm on the button with queen 10 suited. I go ahead and put in the call. So do 4 other players. So we're going to go 5 ways to this flop with the $90 in the pot. Flop comes out ace, king, 3 with 1 heart. It's checked over to the initial raiser, and I've played with him quite a bit, and he's a solid player, and I got a decent read on him, and he bets out for $40. I really think he has a big hand, either ace, king, pocket aces, pocket kings. I mean, a really big hand when he makes this bet. And with a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw, I'm going to put in the call. The small blind also puts in the call, and the other players fold out. So if I hit this card, it's going to be my get even pot, because these guys are going to pay me off. At least the player who's betting, I know he has a really big hand. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I need all the luck I can get on this one, because I'm really hoping to catch a jack. At least you can do is give me a backdoor heart draw so I can go ahead and snap this guy off. Okay, on the count of 3, hit that button, and let's see what that turn card brings. 1, 2, 3. I don't think enough of you guys hit it. Turn card comes as an 8 of diamonds, a complete blank. First player checks it over. Now the player decides to compile a bet, and it's not a small one. He ends up putting out $150. I really think he has a very big hand. I feel so tempted to call, try to snap him off, but let's face it, I'm not getting the right price. And no matter how frustrated I am, I'm not going to pay $150 for this gut shot. So he makes the bet. I lay it down. The other player ends up calling him down. And what do you know? Both of them end up having ace king on this particular hand. So if you guys did a little bit better on liking and subscribing and hitting that button when I told you to, this could have been a really, really good pot. All right, I go on another very long stretch of no playable hands for about another hour and a half. Finally, I find two jacks. There is a player who opens for $3. I make it 20. The player directly behind me calls it 20. Next player calls the 20. We're going to end up going four ways to this flop with $84 in the center. And the flop comes out Jack 7-5 with two spades. Beautiful flop. It's checked to me. I bet $35. Should probably go bigger, probably 45 to 50. Player to my direct left puts in the quick call, and the cutoff also puts in the call for the 35. The player to my right ends up folding, and we're going to go three ways to a turn card, which is a four of clubs. It does bring in the front door straight draw for anyone holding 6-8, but the flush miss, and that's what I was mainly concerned with. I figure there's one of them has maybe a jack. The other one must have some sort of draw. So I'm going to size up a little bit, make it 150. If anyone wants to draw at this, they're going to have to pay. The player on my direct left doesn't think too long before assembling $150 and announcing a call. So it's going to be heads up because the other player folded out quickly as soon as he said that he was calling. So we're going to go to the river with 489 in the pot. River card comes as a five of hearts. So we fill up. Now it's depending on sizing. I figured I'll be stuck about $300, and I got about $300 left in my stack, or my opponent does. And therefore I decided to jam. If he has a flush draw, he's not calling anything. If he happens to have a jack and puts me on a possible flush draw that missed, he'll call off. Anyway, he goes into the tank for a long time. He is a vlog watcher and supporter, and he starts talking through the hand a little bit, and he finally says, you got too many overpairs in your range at this point. I'm going to have to lay this down. And he ends up turning over that he had king jack offsuit and came close to calling it off. Anyway, maybe my sizing was a little bit too aggressive, but I figure with that $480 something, he would call off his last 300. End up playing for about another 15 minutes or so. It was a long day for me, put in a full 5 hours, which for me, that's a long day. I usually don't play over that. And even though the game was still good and I was feeling much better and on the road to recovery, I decided to hang it up. I ended up losing $270 for the day, which after being in for $1,500 isn't so bad. In fact, I've been on a little bit of a heater this month, and this is the roughest day I've had all month long, and that's a $270 loss. So can't complain too much. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really do appreciate your support. Just a reminder, I'm going to be down at Hustler Casino with fellow vloggers Andrew Locke and Eric from Fish Poker. We're going to be having a meetup game on Saturday. It's going to be a 2-3 no limit game, buy-in from $100 to $500. Even if you don't feel like playing,